Okay, so today's class is on gastrointestinal movements. Today we are going to do part 1 of the class. So what are we going to study? We're going to study a little bit of introduction, that is what is gastrointestinal movements and what are the functions. What are the basis of movements, that is the electrical activity which leads to the movement. Then what is mastication, that is what is chewing. A little bit about swallowing, that is deglutition. Then movements in stomach, gastric emptying, vomiting, movements in small intestine, movements in large intestine, and defecation. So today we are going to study up till gastric emptying. Okay, so let's go. And we will also do a little bit about the intestinal bacterial flora, which is nothing but the colonic microflora. So let's go. What are the gastrointestinal movements? These are nothing but rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the smooth muscles of the gastrointestinal tract. These gastrointestinal movements can be heard. Okay, we can auscultate with the help of a stethoscope. We place the stethoscope on the abdomen and hear gurgling sounds. These are also known as the gastrointestinal sounds or the peristaltic sounds. If it's strong enough, even we can hear it even without a stethoscope. Okay, so I think many of you have experienced that. Now we can also see it. Say in the open abdominal surgery, we give an incision and we expose the intestines and we see that it contracts. It is contracting and relaxing in a rhythmic fashion. So we can hear the sounds, we can see the movements. These movements are basically essential for life. These are very, very important. And if these movements are absent for any reason, that is maybe after a surgery or due to any toxin or due to any infection, due to any irritant, this movement stop. Then if they remain stopped for a long period of time or a prolonged period of time, this will prove fatal for the patient. Okay, so these are essential for life. And this movement can also be demonstrated experimentally. How can we do that? We can do that by an isolated tissue experiment using a modified Dale's apparatus. If you want to know how it looks, look at the diagrams on the right side. Okay, so what we do, we take a tissue like a gut, like a intestinal tissue, and then suspend it in an organ bath and connect it to a kymograph. The tissue will keep on contracting and relaxing, showing a baseline contraction on the kymograph. And if we add some chemicals or some substances to the organ bath, like say norepinephrine, barium chloride, we can see changes in the contraction and relaxation. Okay, so the main thing is we can see the movements in this using the isolated tissue experiment. Okay, so why are these movements so important? These movements are important because it helps in mechanical digestion of the food, and it helps in propulsion of the digested food material, that is forward movement of the digested food material, and then finally expulsion of the remnants of the digested food. Okay, so first it helps in digestion, then it helps in propulsion, and finally it helps in expulsion. Okay, so the whole process of digestion requires these gastrointestinal movements. Okay, so what does mechanical digestion involve? Mechanical digestion involves grinding of the food material into chyme. That is, the food material is broken down into small particles so that larger surface area is provided for all the enzymes to act upon. Okay, and it also helps in, by this movement, it also helps in mixing of the chyme with all the digestive juices. Okay, now another function is restriction of bacteria to the lower gut. As I've already discussed in the previous class, the colon has lots of bacteria. These are symbiotic bacteria. These are basically non-pathogenic bacteria in the colon, but if they move up into the upper intestine, upper gastrointestinal tract, it may cause infection. So the bacteria has to be restricted to the lower gut. This is done by this forward movement, forward propulsive movement of the gastrointestinal tract. Now, what is the electrical basis of the movements? What does it mean? Before any mechanical movement can occur, there is an electrical event. Okay, first an action potential has to be generated, then only we can get a movement. That is, then only we can get a mechanical event. First there is an electrical event, then we get, and due to that electrical event we get a mechanical event. Okay, so if we were talking about the movements, these are contraction and relaxation of the gut muscles, smooth muscles. So this is a mechanical event. Before that we need an electrical event. So now we are going to study the electrical event, that is the electrical basis of the movements of the gastrointestinal tract. There are three basic types of electrical activity of the gastrointestinal smooth muscles. These are basal electrical rhythm or BER. These are sometimes also known as slow waves. Then spike potentials, which are the actual action potentials. And finally the migratory motor complex, okay, or MMC. So you can see on the right the diagrams, the BER with superimposed spike potentials. Now let's go on to the details. First we are going to study the basal electrical rhythm, which is the BER or slow waves. In other tissues of the body, the RMP is more or less fixed. Okay, say for neurons it is minus 90 millivolt. For for skeletal muscles it is minus 70 millivolt. But for gastrointestinal smooth muscles, the resting membrane potential or RMP is not fixed. The membrane potential fluctuates, okay, from minus 60 millivolt to minus 50 or minus 45 millivolt. The membrane potential fluctuates with a magnitude of approximately 5 to 15 millivolt. Okay, so the main thing to remember here is that unlike other tissues of the body, the RMP of GI smooth muscles are not fixed. It basically fluctuates. Okay, it gives us a sine wave. I will show you the diagram. Okay, before that we need to know where does this fluctuation arise from. Okay, the smooth muscles of the GI tract shows continuous electrical activity in form of slow undulating and fluctuating changes in the resting membrane potential. These continuous electrical activity is generated by basically the intestinal cells of Kaggle. These are also known as the pacemaker of the intestine. Okay, you know about the pacemaker of the heart, now you know about the pacemaker of the intestine. So what does the pacemaker do? The pacemaker generates a rhythm, and according to that rhythm, the membrane potential of the smooth muscles fluctuate. This basal electrical rhythm is basically brought about by the activity of the sodium pumps. Now for normal resting membrane potentials in other tissues, both sodium and potassium pumps help in development of the membrane potential, resting membrane potential. But for the basal electrical rhythm, it is mainly due to the activity of the sodium pumps. Okay, so see, this is a sine wave. Now the sine wave, this is the resting membrane potential. For normal cell, normal other tissues, the rest or other excitable tissues, the resting membrane potential is just a line. Okay, same value. The resting membrane potential has almost a fixed value. But for the gastrointestinal smooth muscles, this fluctuates. Say it fluctuates from minus 60 to minus 45 millivolt. Okay, this is just an approximate value. Okay, so minus 60 to minus 45 millivolt. Excuse my handwriting, please. Okay, so we get a sine wave. Now, since this BER is only due to the activity of sodium channels, sodium pumps or sodium channels, there is no contraction. This is a basal rhythm. There is no contraction. Contraction only occurs when spike potentials or action potentials are superimposed upon these basal electrical rhythm. Okay. In other tissues, what is happening? There is a resting membrane potential, RMP. On top of that, we get action potential, and finally we get contraction. In smooth gastrointestinal smooth muscles, we have an undulating RMP, that is the basal electrical rhythm. On top of that, when we get action potential, that is the spike potentials, then we get contraction. But there is an exception. This basal electrical rhythm in the stomach, the basal electrical rhythm is basically present all throughout the gastrointestinal tract. It doesn't cause any contraction in the gastrointestinal tract except in the stomach, where it can give rise to contractions. Okay, we will come to that later. In the stomach, it is known as gastric slow waves. Okay, so these are not action potentials and will not give rise to contraction except in the stomach and except when they are superimposed with spike potentials. Okay, so what is the frequency of BER? The frequency of BER varies in different parts of the intestine. In the stomach, it is about 3 to 4 per minute. In a minute, we have 3 to 4 cycles. In the duodenum, it is as high as 12 per minute. Okay. In the ileum and cecum, it is 8 to 9 per minute, and in the sigmoid colon, it is the highest with 16 cycles per minute. Okay. So this was BER. Now let's go on to spike potentials. What are spike potentials? These are actually action potentials. So since these are action potentials, these will lead to contraction of the gastrointestinal tract. And the frequency is about 1 to 10 spikes per second. All throughout the GI tract, we can get one spike. In 1 second, we can get one spike. In the next second, maybe we will get 10 spikes. Okay? The spikes will be formed in different parts of the gastrointestinal tract. And these spikes can be long-lasting. Okay, one spike can last over 10 to 20 milliseconds. Okay, and the spike potential, which are true action potentials, are due to opening of activity of both the sodium and calcium channels. If you remember, the BER was due to opening of the sodium channels only, hence no contraction, but these spike potentials are due to opening of both sodium and calcium channels. So calcium channels open, calcium influx, calcium binds with calmodulin, we get a calcium calmodulin complex that will give rise to the contraction of the GI smooth muscles. So the spike potential looks like this. So spikes superimposed upon the BER. So I said calcium calmodulin complex will lead to muscle contraction. Now, any factor which causes increased depolarization, that is, what is depolarization? Depolarization is when the membrane becomes more positive, and hyperpolarization is when the membrane becomes less positive. Okay, so for action potential development, we need a more positive membrane. So any factor which causes depolarization will increase the chance of a spike potential. Any factor which causes hyperpolarization, that is, which causes the membrane to become more negative, will decrease the chance of an action potential. Okay, you will know more about these when you do action potential and muscle contraction. Okay, so just know that factors which cause depolarization will increase the chance of spike potentials. Factors which causes hyperpolarization will decrease the chance of spike potential development. Okay. Now, what does this mean? We are getting BER, we are getting a basal electrical rhythm. Now some factors occur. That factors changes the membrane potential, makes them more positive. So the normal frequency of spike potential was 4. Now due to this external factor which changes the membrane potential and makes it more positive, the frequency of spike potentials increase. So now instead of 4 we are getting 14 spike potentials. Okay, so factors which causes depolarization will increase the chance of spike potential. So what are the factors? Any stretching of the gastrointestinal muscles, any stimulation by acetylcholine. We add acetylcholine, the contraction of the gastrointestinal tract smooth muscles will increase. This can be basically demonstrated by the modified Diels tissue apparatus. Okay. Stimulation of parasympathetic nerves will also lead to more action potential. Stimulation of GI hormones can lead to development of action potential. Now factors which cause hyperpolarization will lead to less chance of spike potential. These are mainly epinephrine and norepinephrine and sympathetic stimulation. So one thing you may notice from this is that parasympathetic is causing stimulation while sympathetic is causing inhibition. Okay. In the rest of the body, what happens? Any sympathetic stimulation causes stimulation of the different activities of the body or increase in the different activities, while parasympathetic stimulation causes inhibition. This is the opposite here. This is the opposite here. So what is happening? Parasympathetic stimulation will give rise to inhibition. This is opposite to the rest of the body. There is another thing called tonic contraction. This is not very important. This is very uncommon. What is happening? Instead of BER, we are not getting a basal electrical rhythm. Instead of that, we are getting a tonic contraction. That is, the whole tone of the gastrointestinal smooth muscles are increased. This is not associated with BER. This is different from BER. Okay, instead of BER, we are getting a tonic contraction. It can be due to continuous repetitive spike potential. That is, instead of discrete spike potentials, occasional spike potentials, we are getting a continuous spike potentials, one after the another. Okay, it can also be due to some hormonal effect which causes continuous partial depolarization without causing action potential. That is, spike potentials are not being formed. There is partial depolarization, as spike potentials form when there is total depolarization. In case of partial depolarization, spike potentials are not formed. Now the membrane remains in a state of continuous partial depolarization. As a result, the tone increases, and it can also be due to continuous entry of calcium. So there are many causes which can lead to tonic contraction instead of BER, and this is basically very uncommon. You don't need to know the details of this. Now let's go on to the other important topic. We did basal electrical rhythm, did spike potentials, and now we are going to do the migratory motor complex, which is MMC. Okay, so these are basically independent of BER and spike potentials. So we studied BER, and which gives rise to spike potentials due to changes in the membrane potential. Now we get another type of electrical activity, which is migratory motor complex. The thing to remember about this is that migratory motor complex are only found in fasting conditions. As soon as we take in food, the migratory motor complex disappears. Okay, so BER is present continuously. The spike potentials occur from the BER depending upon the stimulus, but it is also present all the time, doesn't depend upon food. But this migratory motor complex depends upon food. Actually, the spike potentials can increase with increased intake of food, but is present when food is not present in the gut. That is, the spike potentials can also be found in fasting state. BER is found in both fasting and fed state, while spike potentials are also found in fasting and fed state, but migratory motor complex are found only in the fasting state, and they disappear when you take in food. These are independent of BER and spike potentials. These are repeated or cyclical electrical disturbances that move down the gut. It is from it moves down the gut and it causes contraction of the gut. Okay. In empty stomach, cyclical electrical disturbances which gives rise to contraction of the gut. BER did not give rise to contraction, spike potential gave rise to contraction. Migratory motor complex also gives rise to contraction. It consists of 4 phases, and these 4 phases are repeated every 90 minutes. So the phases are: phase 1, only electrical activity but no contraction. Phase 2 is irregular contraction. Phase 3 is regular strong contractions, and phase 4 is gradual quiescence. Okay, so look at this diagram. Phase 1. Okay, phase 1, there is only electrical activity, no contraction. Phase 2, you have irregular contraction. Phase 3, strong regular contractions. And phase 4, you have gradual quiescence, that is, gradually the contractions decrease. Okay, so as I said, these are present only in fasting conditions and disappears after food intake. They start at the stomach and duodenum and travels up to the ileocecal valve. That is, cyclical electrical disturbances which start at the stomach and then move down through the gastrointestinal tract up to the ileocecal valve. These are initiated by the GI hormone motilin, and these are also known as the housekeeper of the gut. Okay. Why are they known as the housekeeper of the gut? They are known as the housekeeper of the gut because they keep the gut, sorry about the spelling mistake, they keep the gut free from food remnants by sweeping action. So we take in food. Now in the interdigestive period, in the fasting condition, all the digestive processes occur, and some remnants, some things remain back in the stomach and the intestine. This remnants has to be removed before we take in the next food. Otherwise, there won't be proper digestion of the subsequent food. Okay, so this remnant food is removed by the sweeping action of this migratory motor complex. They also, another important function is they keep the gut bacteria free by sweeping action and by pushing them down into the colon. In the colon, it's normal to get bacteria, but in the other parts, we do not get bacteria. And if the bacteria comes up into the upper part of the intestine and the upper GI tract, then we will get infections. So this MMC, migratory motor complex, pushes the bacteria down into the colon, and it also increases the blood flow to the gut and increases secretion of digestive juices.